may recall that Larry Forrester, the chair in the committee meeting, said mobile homes depreciate like cars. The St. Martin's villagers have forever homes. I think probably Griffin Gate found a way in the Winburn small area plan to keep their boundaries, keep their dead ends, and yet the city found a way to improve connectivity. Think of St. Martin's Village as a Griffin Gate, and thank you for the time.
So we are going to move now. Were there any residents or opposition on this, or anyone that wanted to speak on this that did not yet have a chance of speaking? There will be opportunity when we move for both the applicants and the opposition to have time for rebuttal. We are now going to close the public comment part of the session and then take a break. What would staff recommend on the
20 minutes?
We're going to take a 20-minute break to move to the Phoenix building. If anyone, if you're joining us, please
Yes, that's working. Okay. They just don't understand her. I know this isn't perfect, but James came over here and I was like, whoa, 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 we've got to keep the planning commission away from the.
You have heard that she voiced.
He might not. With him. There we go. That keeps. That way they can see the.
Yeah, there was a chair right here.
Yeah, but that way they can see, the planning commission can see the screen. They can see the screen and then you can stand here at the podium and talk. All right, this is best guess.
I'm sorry.
You all can have a seat right here. Oh, yeah.
Someone saying, you know, can I do this under DOT? And being a lot of problems.
Out to, drill.
We don't have jurisdiction, so like, I guess, what, 3 to do.
So I got to send one workout.
This is wrong.
Absolutely.
Yeah, when I can wear shorts and go to sleep when I want to. I didn't think I'm like, ooh, I'm glad, I'm so glad that's the end. And so we're like, did you, what we're doing? And so we start So don't record it and it's posted on Facebook. I'm not either. That's the thing, is that where I got sued, and then it went on. I looked at that, I said, I can't, these guys can't read them, I can't read them. No one accepted, because here's the other thing, I'm on the standing committee on ethics and professional responsibility. I'm not gonna let a non-lawyer act as a lawyer, that's unauthorized. So that was one of the things that I was accused of, is not allowing a non-lawyer to act as an attorney.
I did an affordable housing project, I used modular homes to address the affordability. I sure did. And it worked.
Out loud, no. This would be a first.
All right, thank you everybody for joining us in here in the Phoenix building. We are going to move this portion of the hearing now to the rebuttal and closing statements portion of the hearing. We'll hear first from the petitioners, then we'll hear from citizen objectors, and then for staff comments, each party has 5 minutes for their rebuttal and closing.
Good evening. Nick Nicholson here on behalf of the applicant again. I will be very quick since this has been quite lengthy already. We first agreed to postpone this zone change back on the week of June 25th after talking with representatives of the neighborhood when we were not able to schedule a meeting at that early part of July. And immediately it said, we're pushed off till August. I informed both committees at that time that we were already had agreed to postpone that hearing, but the one thing that I was hearing from the neighborhood is they're concerned about connections. And I think what we have heard today, without a doubt, has established the fact that the biggest concern is the connectivity between the 3 stub streets that we've been talking about kind of throughout this day. I agree with a lot of what Mr. Simpson said in his presentation. The comprehensive plan doesn't condition connectivity. The subdivision regulations, they don't connect, or they don't condition connectivity. It's something we might want to look at when the next comprehensive plan comes up, but we're under this comprehensive plan right now, and they do not condition connectivity. However, you all have that power. You all have the power to go ahead and condition this this development plan and say that at the time of the final development plan, the applicant must terminate those 3 stub streets into the St. Martin's neighborhood. We're happy to do that. We are happy to go ahead and request that the Planning Commission puts that condition on the development plan, and that will make sure that they know definitively that those streets will not be connected. Does that mean the Urban County Council closes right away? Does it mean a hammerhead? Does it mean a waiver? That can be determined at the final development plan, but you can go ahead and give certainty to the neighborhood that those roads will be terminated today. We do believe that this request is in compliance with the comprehensive plan. This is somewhere where I do disagree with Mr. Simpson's comments. For the litany of the reasons we've laid out in our justification letter and in the staff report, this request is in compliance with the comprehensive plan and the dire need for affordable housing in this community. Simply pointing out that the M1P zone is not referenced in the appendix of the comprehensive plan does not overcome the burden of evidence that we have submitted, or at least the amount of evidence that we have submitted that this request is in compliance with the tenets of the comprehensive plan and the push for affordable housing and infill and redevelopment. Whenever a city is trying to fight affordable housing like Lexington is, it needs as many tools as it possibly can get. This is just one tool. We've heard examples of other tools that also offer affordable housing opportunity, but this is the tool that immediately can address part of the affordable housing problem and can bring in units as quickly as possible. Now, as far as the connections do go, I did want to point out that if the development plan is approved today with that access point, the mobile home park will have 5 access points onto Price. The connectivity issues in this particular instance is to address the lack of connectivity for the St. Martin's neighborhood, as Mr. Crum kind of very thoroughly documented, of the amount of time that it would take and the distance that it would take for the St. Martin's residents to get to Price. I think we can all agree that the St. Martin's neighborhood is okay with that distance, and they believe that these connections should not be made, and we're happy to support them in that request. We would ask you all to approve this zone change, and we are happy to document anything that we need to in order to continue working on the kind of concerns of the neighborhood, especially regarding connectivity. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, Mr. Nicholson. Just have 2 or 3 points to make. Obviously, you've heard a lot of testimony today. Your first threshold decision is this application in compliance with the comprehensive plan? From a legal standpoint, it's undisputed that with respect to the applicant's application, mobile home park rezoning is not recommended. It's just not. There's no dispute about that either. Connectivity is a big issue. I wish the applicant would have filed an application that requested a waiver of the subdivision regulation in connection with the zone change so that you all could have considered that waiver, but that didn't happen. And so we're here for a final decision. Threshold decision is in compliance with the comprehensive plan based on what's recommended for the zoning in connection with the application? No, it absolutely is not. My judgment, there's no basis legally for you to approve this. This neighborhood needs protection. All African American neighborhoods need protection, and our comprehensive plan is woefully inadequate in doing that. You all are the guardians of the plan. The plan is a guide. If it's deficient, which it is in this regard, you all have the power to decide, using your common sense, your reason, your history, your judgment, your education, is this in compliance with the plan? And moreover, is it the right thing to do for this neighborhood? Is it the right thing to do for this historic community? This community didn't seek historic designation. It's historic because they persevered. We ask that you allow them to continue uninterrupted in their history without having up to 5,000 new trips a day going through it. Thank you.
Thank you. Does staff have a rebuttal or closing comments?
Good evening, everyone. Daniel Crum with planning staff again. Just wanted to touch on a couple different things. The first being there was some mention of whether or not this application is in agreement with the comprehensive plan, and specifically the application within Place Builder was brought up. So within the Place Builder, there are a number of zones that are recommended for each general type of place and each general type of development, but it's really a guide. It is a vehicle for explaining to the Planning Commission, the community, the decision makers, of how a application does or does not agree with the comprehensive plan. Now, Mr. Simpson was correct. The mobile home park M1P zone is not recommended within that, but neither is any of the single-family residential zones, including the current zoning of the neighborhood. The recommended zones there really are projecting for future density, future development. It doesn't preclude an applicant for seeking those zones. It just helps set the conversation on what's appropriate in any given location. Staff, in their review of this location with a parcel that already has over 50% existing mobile home M1P zoning, is adjacent to that, found that to be appropriate and compatible with the low-density development that was directly adjoining of it. There's been several characterizations of the traffic that this would generate. I don't believe that planning staff nor the Division of Traffic Engineering would support the conclusions that sort of have been drawn off that, and to kind of illustrate the traffic impact on the neighborhood, we have an aerial view of the subject properties here. So here we have, highlight that, sorry, go back. We have the subject properties shown in the center of the screen here. The existing mobile home park is shown here, already providing traffic on the day-to-day basis. All of the 500 units or so in the existing mobile home park currently utilize Price Road in one form or function, either exiting out onto Georgetown or bypassing the entirety of the neighborhood to head out towards Leestown Road. If this connection would be made, it provides connectivity from St. Martin's to improve their improve travel out west down Price Road, but really doesn't provide anything to this existing mobile home park, as they already have access to collectors that can then ferret them out. So in essence, these connections will benefit the most the rear portions of the property that only have really one fungible way in and out. Existing access on the existing portions mean that the most straightforward route is going to be through the collectors on Price Road. So keeping that in mind as traffic is dispersed, how that is going to work, the entirety of the traffic between the proposed 50 units at a density that is similar to the existing homes here is not going to be combined with this development and suddenly only function through development in a path that is less straightforward, requires more turns, requires less straightforward access out. So really just wanted to harp on those two aspects. There was the comments about connections and connectivity. It is context specific in nearly all applications. What we have in the subdivision regulations is this general principle of these should be extended. You have the comprehensive plan that we should be examined. But it does matter what kind of streets are being connected to which. Earlier today, we heard a presentation about looking for a connection on a roadway that staff, in our professional opinion, was not warranted or would create an issue with the health, safety, or welfare. Here, we are proposing, or the applicant is proposing, connections to existing local streets with local streets. Lots that are single-family homes with 6,000 square foot lots, single-family uses on a 5,000 square foot lot. The difference being the rental versus the ownership in one and another. So as we look at this, the comprehensive plan is looking for ways for us to provide the housing we need, regardless of whether that is owner-occupied, although owner-occupied is a wonderful way to build towards equity and many other things, but really just providing the necessary housing regardless of income, class, race, creed, etc. Now, planning staff absolutely acknowledges, and the comprehensive plan acknowledges the impact of the racism, redlining, other discriminatory factors that really led to the formation of the St. Martin's Village neighborhood. But planning staff, in urging these connections, really is speaking to you and just saying you can't solve a history of exclusion and separation by doubling down on it. These connections make sense. These connections will improve the connectivity for a neighborhood in a way that is not going to negatively impact them. A rezoning of an adjacent property doesn't change any land use for any existing home in the St. Martin's Village neighborhood. It allows them to retain the roots that they've set through generations, but it provides connectivity. It allows them on their day-to-day to have more options. It allows us to get more housing units as a community, and allows us to integrate to communities that for most of their existence have been separated. So with that, the planning staff would be happy to entertain any questions you may have, but we are standing by our recommendation in the staff report. Thank you.
Thank you. That closes this portion of the hearing, and we bring it back to the Planning Commission here for questions.
I do have a question, and maybe this is more directed toward Mr. Simpson as representing the St. Martin's Village Neighborhood Association. But am I understanding correctly that the biggest concern is connectivity and not the zone?
No, ma'am. The zone is a major objection.
Okay, I haven't heard that much, so that's why I'm asking,
Yes, ma'am.
because everybody that came forward, for the most part, talked about connectivity.
The connectivity certainly goes into the issues of zoning and the traffic, the extra traffic that would be coming through the neighborhood. That is a required consideration of zoning. So they do interconnect, but we object to the zoning
Okay.
on this case.
And my question is, if this were a single-family development where people actually own the land and are able to create personal generational wealth, would the connectivity be as much of an issue?
Not as much, but it would still be a major concern.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Just from a real estate perspective,
Sure.
and thinking about generational wealth, while this is an attempt at affordable housing, in the long term, it's not, because I cannot generate wealth from having a manufactured home on leased land. Yes, my manufactured home, unlike a mobile home tends to depreciate in value, but a manufactured home can increase in value. However, if I don't own the land, it doesn't do the same thing for me as being a landowner of real property. And so that's kind of what my concern is here, that I was just concerned I didn't hear enough about the zone itself. And
Your point is well taken. The land is rented.
yes,
There is no equity that they're going to get on the property. The developer will keep all that equity. And the residents who pay the rent will pay for the maintenance of the private streets. Part of their rent will go toward upkeep of the private streets.
okay.
Marcel, I do just want to correct one thing. They do actually gain equity. So manufactured
Yes,
homes
yes, yeah, they
are
do.
sold like often. And so even to answer the question, well, what happens if someone defaults? They actually sell the manufactured home and retain the equity that they have been gaining through payments of mortgage, through payments of just like you would at a normal house.
Right.
Yes, you're missing out on the land value, but you are still getting equity out of that, unlike someone who is just living in an affordable housing rental unit.
Yeah, then I guess my other concern with that too is FHA tends to be the kind of default, loan position that people use, and finding, being able to finance a manufactured home through FHA on leased land doesn't seem like that's an option. I haven't seen, when I looked it up just a few minutes ago, it did not indicate that leased land was eligible for FHA. Now, there may be some other loan options available, but anyway, just I'm kind of having a little bit of a concern with the leased land, because for me, then it looks more like, you know, any other apartment complex or whatever, even though, yes, you do own your walls. It's almost a condo, if you will, you know, loosely.
And so that's where the benefit of the manufactured home does come in, because you can basically own your house and you can then take it to private land and basically install that and, you know, truly have your home on your own land.
Yeah.
Usually you do seek private financing is what I was just told
Right,
with
yeah.
regards to when you're obtaining that mortgage.
Right, okay. Thank you.
Mr. Nichols?
I don't have a question, but this is a comment for discussion amongst the planning commissioners, if this is a good time for that? Or is that a good time for that?
This works for me.
Our job on the planning commission is to take the information that we've received and discern that information and come up with a conclusion that references the comprehensive plan and the needs of the stakeholders being the landowner, the neighbors, and our community as a whole. So this is a difficult, it's a difficult decision to rule upon when all of the stakeholders are valued equally. What I've seen here today is the St. Martin's Village is a wonderful community with some of the best representation I personally have seen in my role as planning commissioner. So this is a true community, and the type of community representation we've seen today is beyond admirable. So taking that into consideration, I'm putting on my planning commission hat, my planning hat. And from what I see, the current zone R1D is probably the highest and best use of the property itself. But if the property were to be developed as R1D, by necessity, it's going to have the connections at St. Martin, Dominican, and Tibbs. I don't see any way out of that with my planning hat on, how you could develop that property without those connections. Therefore, when I'm thinking about it, if the main concern is to protect St. Martin's Village and protect the St. Martin's, Dominican, and Tibbs roads themselves, in my estimation, this is probably the only development plan we will see that could have the potential for blocking off those streets. So, in my opinion, or to start the conversation amongst us, if the goal, in my mind, if my goal would be to protect St. Martin's Village by blocking with hammerhead St. Martin's, Dominicans, and Tibbs, that this is probably the best project we will see that has the ability to provide affordable housing and protect the neighborhood. There is a lot of value in keeping it the way that the zoning is now, but as that property would be developed, it would be connected. There are major benefits with the housings that could come in, could increase the value of the property in St. Martin's Village, but then again, there's a lot of uncertainty that comes with that. We don't know what type of development will come in. So what I'm trying to say is, if my discernment is correct, the only plan that can provide the security to St. Martin's Village by closing or hammerheading St. Martin's, Dominican, and Tibbs, it's this one here. So I just wanted to let you all know that's what I'm thinking, and I'd like to have a conversation about that.
So, all right, you've got more experience in development in real estate than I do. So for me, sitting here as a member of the Planning Commission, developing that property as R1D would not inherently require those kind of connections. I don't know that to be true or not true. Okay, let me finish my point. So for me, blocking the connections and the zoning are two separate questions. And when I look at where we're going as a community and when I look at the comprehensive plan, I think of St. Martin's Village as I do our historic hamlets. And we have made a commitment to protect those historic hamlets. And for me, protecting the integrity and the connections, you know, the kind of connections we've been talking about with the streets are about transportation efficiency. But we're balancing transportation efficiency off of a sense of place. And I grew up in a small town that turned into a suburb, but I have some sense of what it was like to grow up in a community that had one high school and white mamas and papas who knew every kid in the neighborhood and also were calling your parents if you were doing something you weren't supposed to be doing. That was a long time ago, longer than most of you I've heard talk today. So I can make a case for we need to protect St. Martin's. We need to block those connections because we need to preserve that community. And so that's my take on that. I'm willing to have a conversation about Bruce's point about what we do with the zoning. That's where I am.
I agree with all of you. Actually, you all have hit all the key points that I would make, and I have to admit, I'm sitting here conflicted in a different way because I've got a planning hat on, and yet at the same time I have a community hat on as well. And I have confided, some of these people know that I used to live on Childs Avenue, which is right across the street from where that trailer park generally is. The only thing across the street is a cemetery right now, I think, for the most part. And also, I used to ride my bicycle all over Florence and Breathitt Avenue. And in fact, when St. Martin's Village came into play, they didn't build all the houses at one time. They spread them out in the village. That to me was heaven because I could ride my bicycle through the whole community and enjoy myself as I was doing so. And my parents took me to the first open house that they had, and they had already secured some home ownership during that time. When Mr. Simpson was talking about the history of the neighborhood, I started to stand up and say, fella, you can't tell me any more than what I already know. You know, I appreciate the reminder, but for the most part. But first of all, I would say too, I'm committed to doing what we can to preserve St. Martin's Village, period. I mean, without that. And I think they deserve the protection, as Judy would put it, as a hamlet of some way. I don't know how that would work out. I think that could work out. But Bruce makes a really good point here, folks. We don't know what would go in there if a zone change did not take place or did, or if they went in with single-family homes, connectivity may be required by law. And I'm not sure how that works out. But if it is, then you lose that connectivity issue. So the question that I had was similar to the one that Ivy had. Which is more important to you, the connectivity or the business about the trailers and the land sustainability as it relates to the kind of house that's sitting there as such? And that's a choice that I think we'll all have to kind of wrestle with as we continue our discussions today. I took note of what Mr. Nichols said because he has made a concession here that he didn't make in the other part, and that is he's willing to go along with the closing of the connections in order to do some other things. And if that's important as it relates to it, I think we ought to be able to figure a way with as many brains as we have here how to do that and preserve the integrity of St. Martin's Village. Because I think we're committed to doing that, not just me alone, but I think the whole commission would. And my colleague here, he was working as hard as he could with the attorneys. You saw a lot of jumping up and down and what have you. We recognized, we heard what you were saying. We were trying to figure out how to get around some of this. Because by law, the only thing we can do is to follow the comprehensive plan. Now, we know that if the comprehensive plan can be, if once the staff makes a recommendation and a comprehensive plan is a part of that part, The only way we can get out of this is to produce evidence against that. We have to have what we call facts. We just can't simply say, I love this, and therefore no, it doesn't work that way, ladies and gentlemen. We have to have facts because we're in a judicial setting as such. But be that as it may, we hear you. We understand it, and we appreciate it. What we're trying to do is to figure out how to do two things: protect St. Martin's Village, but at the same time, we are committed through our comprehensive plan for infill development and for affordable housing. And we know that at the rate the community is growing here, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to need a lot more housing than what we currently have. Now, someone says a $93,000 portable home is not something, but the average home here in Lexington, Kentucky is running for $300,000 to $400,000. And we're trying to figure ways on how we can get people into the system as such. And I think there are ways to do that if we think through that as much as possible. But I think I'll end it here with my sermon, unless you all want to take up a collection. And we can sing Just As I Am without one plea. Thank you.
The only other thing I could say in connection with that would be family. That's what it's about. And we've heard you loud and clear. And I think we do have a plan, and we'll see if it comes to fruition. Thank you.
I'd like to go on the record as saying that at a minimum that I'm in favor of non-connectivity between St. Martin's Village and the new subdivision. And if an argument could be made that the subdivision itself, the new subdivision itself, not even come into existence, I would be for that as well. But we have to have evidence. We can't do this with our hearts. We got to do it with evidence.
I want to compliment the community on their presentations, but I also want to reflect on what I see as being a real missed opportunity here. I think that this piece of property could have been a huge asset for the community, could have been a way for the village to expand itself and to grow and to diversify and to however, I hear the pushback on that, and I honor that, and I think that we are when we have so much evidence from the community brought in this way, we have to listen, and we have to do what we're being asked, I think. But I would point out one other thing that hasn't been said, which is kind of surprising, but almost every single project that we see like this, there's huge pushback about connectivity from neighbors. And I'm going to tell you that almost every time it's not well-founded. It's about fear. It's about not really understanding what it means. It is not well-founded. and it's exacerbated by activists who want a certain outcome, and it's encouraged by saying that there's going to be 5,000 cars, blah, blah, blah. Complete nonsense. I totally agree with Daniel Crum that the connectivity would actually benefit the community. However, once again, I hear what you're saying and I honor what you're saying. I just wish that there had been some leadership to help people really understand what the potential of that property was and what the potential of the connectivity was. So that's what I've got to say.
Thank you for your all's comments. Does anybody have any follow-up questions or a motion to put forward?
I'll try a motion, and I'm not sure it has to pass muster with legal as such. And what I'm trying to do is, ladies and gentlemen, is balance off the comments that we've heard here vis-a-vis the kinds of things that we've heard from you all as a community. And again, I think we've all said, for the most part, we want to do what we can to preserve the historical significance and the history behind St. Martin's Village. People call it villa, it's village. You know, I know what it is because I've been living there. But the bottom line is that's what we're trying to do. Here's what we would like to do, and I'll just try this. I'm gonna put this on the table and then see what's what. For those of you who are not used to motions, here's what happens. First of all, what we do here has to be reapproved with a final development plan. So as part of my motion, I'm going to make the recommendation that we close off. Oh, I will do that, but I'm going to put in there something to denote determination of those substreets at the time of the final development plan. In other words, I'm going to recommend that we close it, just like you indicated that we did. We have two parts to the motion. First of all, we have the development plan, and then we have, well, we'll do the zone first and then the development. Now, this might not sit well with many of you, but I would like to approve the zoning plan and then deny the connection and hope that that would be satisfactory for us moving forward as such. So with that, I'm going to have to take it in two motions so you'll know what's going on. First of all, I would like to move approval of PLN MJDP 24-43. I'm sorry, which one is it?
We need to do the zone change.
Oh, the zone, okay. PLN MAR 24-10 Fayette County MHCLP with the conditions provided by staff.
Second.
Robin, let me just say,
25.
based on what you just said,
Yeah.
even though it's coming next, I think,
Yeah.
I don't think you can include the reasons under 2B and 3B because it talks about connectivity. So if the next thing you're going to do is say, I'm taking that out, I don't think that can be a reason you rely on to approve this.
Okay.
You'll still have the other reasons, and I think that's adequate.
So-
But I just don't want you to incorporate those and then in your next motion take it out.
Okay, I can do that. Okay, so then I would just simply say that we approve the zone changes with the conditions or reasons provided by staff.
Yes, sir.
Minus?
You got to take out.
Minus 2B. 2B and which one? And 3B. 2B minus 2B and 3B. Is that correct?
I'll second that.
So the motion has been made and seconded. All right, do we have any discussion on the motion?
Yeah, I have discussion.
Yeah.
I need to be sure that the motion yes, I want to be sure that the motion as it's presented definitively prevents connectivity between this.
That's coming second.
Okay.
That's my next one.
Okay.
Okay.
So
So there's a couple other places where it talks about substreets.
Okay, where is that now?
So here we talk about.
we're going to make sure that the motion right now aligns with the next motion on the development plan. That's what's
So
going
we
on.
gotta take out these? Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to amend, I've been told by the staff here that there are 3 other places in here that talks, 2 places that it talks about substreets, and we'd like to take out section, it's in section 3A. And it says here in the connection of existing substreets, we want to delete that.
Okay.
And in same section D, we want to take out, and it provides connections to existing substreets. We want to take that out.
Okay.
Okay. Let's be clear here, 100%, okay? Let's start with 1.
Okay.
So, under the reasons, number 1, you've got A, B, C, and D. So you're talking about taking out 1D, which talks
Yes.
about substreets and circulation within the neighborhood, right? Or that's not what we were just talking about. Okay, I mean, then I think we already talked about 2B, which I think is covered. And then when you're talking about 3B, which was included in your motion, but then we're also talking about 3A. But are we just talking about eliminating the wording that says, and the connection to substreets? Because it also talks about density in there. Right, so,
Just add the connection to existing substreets.
so you would just be deleting that portion, but
That's
keeping the
correct.
rest of that finding? Okay, just wanted to be clear. And then under D, the same thing.
Yep. It says and provides connection to existing substreets. We want that to come
Right. So basically what that does is it leaves the other rationale that you are agreeing to in support of the zone change, but it eliminates the connections to substreets, which is what you're going to take up in your next motion, as I understand it.
That's correct.
So we also,
That's what my intent is.
Tracy Jones wanted to delete 1D. Did
Okay,
everyone get
is
that as well? So we'll have a 1 ABC, a 2 A, C, and D, a 3A modifying the last phrase, no B, a 3C as is, 3D, again modifying the last section of that sentence, and then keeping 3E and also 4.
That's correct.
Thank you.
So, just to be clear, 3A and 3D, where we're proposing to eliminate the last parts of verbiage that refers to the existing substreets. Substreets, yeah. So they're saying, like 3A says, the proposed rezoning meets the criteria for land use, and then it says why. And D says it meets the requirements for site design, and then it says why. Does it still meet those requirements if those elements are deducted from those?
I think so, because it also talks about density by increasing dwelling units, and it talks about creating recreational space and amenities within the development itself.
So you're saying the requirements for site design and for land use are not comprehensive, they just have to have some elements to meet the requirements?
I think that is correct, because, the sentence has the connector in it of and the connection to existing substreet, so those other things would still be in play.
Okay, thank you.
So we have an amended motion by Commissioner Wilson, and is that
Yes.
seconded by
Second.
Commissioner
Yes.
Owens? And then, so we have a motion on the floor to approve the zone change. And we'll take that motion now for a vote. All in favor, please raise your right hand. All opposed? The motion passes with one nay vote, which is mine. And then I'll put it back to you for a motion on the
Okay,
development.
now we get to the other crucial part for the community as such. I'm sorry, can you make
So-
sure? Okay, I'm getting ready to make a second motion, which is the part about the connectivity and what it's going to say in effect, but it's going to have some interesting language in it. We want to terminate that so that you will not have that connectivity and your community will be protected. That's essentially what we're going to be doing here at the next. Now, remember, all of this has to be back to us as a committee to the final development plan. And so we know what we're saying here, but we also have to be on guard to make sure that it's executed in the way that we want it when it comes back to us. So I'm asking now that we approve PLN Plan MJDP 24-43, Suburban Point Park Expansion, with the 10 recommendations provided by staff, adding the 11th recommendation, which is to denote the appropriate termination of 3 substreets at the time of the final development plan. Is that clear? Okay.
Second, yeah.
Motion was made and seconded by Commissioner Davis. And is there any discussion? I will make one point because Tom Martin made this earlier. When we look at the development plan, we're now voting as if the zoning is approved. My no vote had to do with the zoning, not the plan. I believe those masons that built your all's neighborhood are still there. They're part of the neighborhood. I don't think that I think there's a reason that mobile home zoning was left out and is not included in the recommended zone. And so that being said, with that zoning approval, we're now voting as if the zone is in place.
Okay. Motion's on the table, sir.
Yeah. Motion's on the table. All in favor, raise your right hand. That motion for the development plan passes unanimously. That ends this portion of the hearing.
No, sir, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a 45-minute presentation on St. Martin's Village and the importance of that. I'm just kidding.
We thank you all for sticking with us, and thank you all for sharing your comments and stories, and thank you also especially for switching venues in the middle. That brings us back to, I believe everything else has been postponed. Is that correct, other than commission items? Okay. Mr. Duncan?
Mr. Chair, members of the Planning Commission, just for a reminder, we do have a Planning Commission work session on Thursday, August 29th at 1:30. We'll be here in the third floor Phoenix. Thank you.